I'm 50 years old. I'm an older guy. I can't believe the amount of young people today that have the tech savviness that are not taking full advantage of that, not boosting their ads, not retargeting, not engaging. And it doesn't take much. It's a post today, but engaging and having a conversation.
Have heard of you or have done some business because of the volume that you do. But what got you into real estate, and really what allowed you to get started in it? And I can't wait to hear more about your trajectory in it for such a phenomenal story that it is.
Yeah, it was really just sort of this desire to learn about real estate and investing, and it wasn't even about sales like that. That's not. And I was just a kid. I was 18 years old, and I just wanted to learn about building wealth, and I was obsessed with, how do people do that? How do they develop? How do they own all these rental properties? And one of the things that I wrote about in my book was being inspired by someone you wouldn't normally be inspired with. It was a gentleman by the name of Tom Vu, who was on infomercials late at night, showing off his Rolls Royce and his mansions and the hot babes on the back of his boat. And I'm like, right, dude, I want to be that guy. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's kind of like what the inspiration was there. And then, of course, it led to taking some courses, and I had some time in the summer, which I took advantage of, and I just went to the local college. And in those days, it was 6 weeks in class, and you got your license.
Wow, really?
So that and then I just thought, well, I had a friend whose dad was a realtor at Century 21, and he said, go talk to my dad. His dad said, you look too young, you should go to school. And while I was waiting for the bus, I remembered that an old friend of my father's had an office across from the bus terminal. So I went up and talked to him, and he said, yeah, why don't you start coming here after school, and I'll show you the ropes. And then never looked back.
So what does that look like, though, as far as you getting started in real estate, and when did it actually really, I would say, begin to take off?
So, it was interesting. It was 1988, November of 88, that I got licensed. And then that Christmas, I met a group of individuals who were visiting from South Africa, of South Asian descent, that were just looking at investing money. The whole apartheid thing was going on in South Africa. Things were getting nationalized. They were trying to get their money out of the country. They had a lot of money in the UK already, and they thought Canada was a safe place to invest, not so much from a growth perspective, but just to have some security of funds. And we were at a dinner conversation, and I was just sort of listening in, and one of the elderly gentlemen sort of, threw some attention my way, asked me if I was in school. And I said, well, no, I'm finishing school, and I'm in my final year of high school, but I'm also a realtor. And he said, oh, well, we're interested in investing. And I said, well, here's my card, and let me know if I can help you with anything. And of course, on Monday, they called and said, we're going to be in the area, and we'd like to, see what you guys have in the way of commercial properties and developments and that type of thing. And it turned out that single-handedly was just about a $1.5 million transaction that I did.
Wow.
In that week. And, so as a high school student, to do that kind of business. And then another gentleman that was out of Hamilton, who was a friend of my father's, that I knew, he was into developments and all that. I didn't really know what he did, but I was speaking to him, and he said, well, if you ever, Cambridge is up and coming, if there's ever some land in that area, let me know. And I came across a parcel of land, and I called him, and he came down, looked at it, and thought it was a great piece, and ended up purchasing that for $500,000. And in those days, to do $2 million in, they used to have something called the $1 Million Club back in those days at most of the companies. And that meant that you sold $1 million worth of real estate in the year. And, the average price in Cambridge at that time was $90,000 for a home. do, so if you sold 10 or 12 homes that year, you were part of the $1 Million Club. And of course, I was very fortunate that I did that in my first 2 months of being in the business. But yeah, that was my start, just starting out. And I was able to convince my parents to let me not go to university, and they were not happy about that. They're certainly very happy now, but they weren't at the time.
I would think so.
Yeah.
So you started with C21 by the sounds of it.
No, I actually got rejected by C21.
Oh, you got rejected by them. Okay.
So I was disheartened, and I was waiting at, I didn't even have a car. I was probably the first realtor in the world without a vehicle, but I didn't have a car. I was just 18 years old. I just left high school to go for this interview, and then I walked across the street and met Mr. Maneri, who was my first broker. He was 74 at the time, so he was the eldest member of the real estate board, and I was the youngest member of the real estate board. So it was quite the partnership, and certainly he mentored me, and I learned a lot with him. I was with him right from 88 until 91. Sorry, no, 1990. And then I joined a company called Realty World, which was very big in London at one time. And I joined that company, but in the Cambridge branch. And I stayed with them until 1994, at which time I joined Remax. And I've been with Remax for, I guess, 26 years now.
Wow, that's a great longevity with an organization as well. So
yeah.
When you look at the dynamic of, okay, you're having some success, what, I guess, systems, strategy did you start to take? I mean, did you do some of the traditional stuff like door knocking, cold calling, things like that? Was it all, the connections that you have? I mean, I'm sure that everybody would love to hear how you created business and then how that really progressed as well.
So I always took a very sort of a contrarian approach to this industry. I've gone against the conventional wisdoms that are out there and thought, okay, I'm going to pave my own way. I'm going to try some different things. I'm going to model excellency, but I'm going to get creative with it. So instead of critiquing it and trying to adapt it to myself, I tried to do it a little bit different and creatively. So I looked at what the top producers were doing in my region. And yes, everybody was door knocking, everybody was cold calling, but you would find that they would do it for a little bit of time, and then they would be completely deflated, lose the motivation, and just stop and just sort of slow down and just eventually get out of the business because they were exhausted. So I took my sphere of influence as my primary focus, and I really tried to cultivate that. What I did was I went back to my community, which was a South Asian community. I was one of the first South Asian agents in my region, and I speak 4 different languages. So I started off not asking them to give me business, but letting them know that I'm here for them. And in those days, 32 years ago, there were a lot of new immigrants, didn't speak English very well, were not very adapted to the Western society. So I would do things like take them to the employment office, help them fill out some forms, take them to, whatever government agencies they need, like getting their driver's license. So I became more of a community service individual, which I was happy to do. And my father had done that for years. So I learned from my dad what he was doing to help the community settle into the town. And the unintended consequences of that was I was forming this following, or this loyalty from that community, and the community supported me when they were in a position to rent a home, sell a home, buy a home, whatever they want to do. They would always turn to me because I had always been there as an advisor or a translator or whatever you want to call it. So that was my number one sort of sphere that I tapped into. Number two, as I said, I was 18 years old, so I had just I had made a lot of friends within the community. So I reached out to those people who I'd worked part-time jobs with. I worked at the local mall, Byway at the time. I was a stock boy. I worked at drug mart. I worked as a bank teller. I had a little side business going there where I was printing T-shirts and caps and whatnot. So I reached out to those individuals personally and said, "Hey, I'm in real estate now," right down to my paper route. Because until I was 16 years old, I had a massive paper route, and I was known in my neighborhood as the paper boy. So I went on and I gave them some information. I dropped off some information about me, flyers and whatnot, and that was another aspect of sort of farming, if you want to call it. And then lastly, I used to receive many things in the mailbox from realtors, but it would be intermittent. You would get it, during the spring season, then you wouldn't hear about anything else until next year's spring season.
Mhm.
So that's where modeling, excellence creatively, I decided that I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it consistently. So I started with a 500 home farming area, which I couldn't afford to put, a stamp on or pay Canada Post to do those things. So I would walk the streets every night, dropping off flyers, just basically never door knocked, never picked up the phone, nothing cold. I was absolutely horrified by the idea of having a door slammed in my face. And to this day, I've never picked up the phone and cold called, but I've done a lot of passive marketing. That
Mm.
included flyers, billboards, buses, benches, and now given social media, uh, boy, I mean, if I had that 32 years ago, it would have been a completely different story. It's a game changer, and social media has become your database, and
Mhm.
that's how you have to look at it today. And I think people don't realize, and I'm 50 years old. I'm an older guy. I can't believe the amount of young people today that have the tech savviness that are not taking full advantage of that, not boosting their ads, not retargeting, not engaging. And it doesn't take much. It's a post a day, but engaging and having a conversation. I still handle all of my own social media as far as engagement. The posting, I do outsource that because I don't have the time to do it, or nor do I have the knowledge to be able to
Sure.
do the design work. But once you have that rhythm and once you have that flow, so today's database is not necessarily what you have on your Rolodex. It's what you have in your circle and how you engage. And it's not taking the lazy way where you wait for that every third month to send out a newsletter, or you have that scheduling. It's in real time. Everything's in real time.
So when you look at some of the forms of passive marketing, flyers, which I've done a lot of myself, benches, billboards, things like that. Has that stayed consistent throughout your entire career? And have you just kept adding to it, or are there set amounts or set number of signs, or is it just you want to dominate the whole landscape that you're in?
So in my earlier days, I allocated 20% of my gross income towards marketing. And that included flyers, magazines, newspapers, you name it, billboards. That's where I'm on about 15 buses in my street, sorry, in my city, on the back of the buses. So it's that passive marketing. You're sort of top of mind. It's like that elevator music. It's in the background, not enough to annoy you, but it's there. And when you can pay attention to it, you will, and you might think about it. So you want to sort of be everywhere, and that's one of the things that I ask my sellers or people that call me is, how did you hear about me? And the response I often get is, you're everywhere. So I've got a big sign at a massive sign at this local arena, the buses, the billboards. Now, as far as flyers, I've 100% stopped all print advertising as of 3 years ago. So there's
Mm.
no more print advertising. I found that it was very effective until I got my social media following up and running. And now I can target the audiences that I want. And the key to social media marketing, again, and I've said this before, is engagement. You see a post come up, it's very important that you take the moment to like that post or engage with them, because we are a sort of a like driven audience
Yes.
now. And we want that affirmation from people that we're being listened to, or we're being acknowledged, or they exist and we are paying attention to them and we haven't forgotten them. And this is such a powerful tool that we have now, where I can go through my feed every day and at least make a comment on 20 or 30 of my clients or friends daily, and they know that I'm thinking about them, I'm engaged with them, I'm complimenting, when little Johnny gets the goal at the soccer field, and they know that you're still part of their community.
Hmm. Hmm. What about the online lead space? Is that something that you've ever really focused on? Generating leads, websites, user registrations, things like that.
Yes. So the caveat there is, choose wisely and don't register yourself with every lead gen site that knocks on your door. So there are a few lead generation sites that I believe are useful. And we've heard of them, and I'm not trying to promote any of them, but Bold Leads is one of them, where you're paying a monthly fee to get those leads coming to you. Now, they may have come to you anyways. They may have Googled your name and come to you anyways. However, you're paying the fee. It's a form of marketing. So something like that, I do encourage. Using Facebook ads, Instagram ads, very important to do as well to generate those leads. Then there's the referral type of lead, where you're getting more of a solid lead, an appointment, or a request for an appointment.
Hmm.
The reason why I say be very cautious in how you align yourself with those lead gen companies. They're collecting a 25% referral. Now, if you sign up with 10 of them to get a 20, and then you end up getting a 25% referral, remember, if you're not prominent on your Google search, and if you're not placing at a high level, those lead generation companies are going to get that inquiry before you will. So if they're typing in Ryan Hodge, and you've registered with many lead generation companies, chances are they're not going to land on your web page. They're going to land on the lead generation web page. Now, even though they were looking for you, you're going to pay a 25% referral to the lead gen company, because that's where they landed. So I make a point of not getting lazy on that and making sure that I'm optimizing my social media and my search engine is optimized, that there's constant videos and blogging and engagement and fresh information being circulated, so that I'm prominent in those searches and not just sort of somewhere down the line. So
Sure.
when they type in, like as soon as someone starts typing in Faisal, I want my full name and my website to pop up in the Google search. And if I ask people to do that once in a while to see if where I'm placing, and it is still coming directly to my web page. Now, when they type in top agent Cambridge, top agent London, Mississauga, if you're aligned with some of those lead generation sites, chances are you're going to land on those pages because of the keywords that one is using.
When look at SEO, is that something that you pay to have done, like outsourced, or is it something that your admin or staff do for you?
So I have a social media person that does that for me.
Okay.
I find that you have to be careful with the outsourcing, because it'll be a call center somewhere outside, possibly in India or wherever it is, that is doing that, but it could just be a bunch of information that's just being put out there, and they're trying to optimize it, but it's not genuine, it's not real, there's no engagement. It's just click click click, and it's got to be genuine, because the algorithms on social media, Google identify. So that's why I don't buy followers on my Instagram feed, or postings, because when you're buying followers, that's not genuine content, that's not genuine likes, that's not genuine engagement. So you're not going to place very high when you start sponsoring those ads. And what you want is organic engagement, not paid engagement. In the beginning, my budget for Facebook and Instagram was probably somewhere around $2,000 a month. I'm down to less than $500 a month, because my organic engagement has increased so much now that the paid advertising isn't required as much.
Wow. And when you talk about the organic, is that off of your business pages or your personal?
So I've combined my business and personal as one, and that's
Okay.
the other thing. I'm a real proponent of this because people want to know who you are. What are you into? What is your lifestyle? How can they relate to you? And if you're not relatable, if everything you post about is just business, you're not really humanizing yourself. You're becoming just an object. And it's so important to, there is personal content that I like to post, but not too often. Um, these days we're not really out social, so there's not a whole lot. But if I'm on the ski slopes, I'll take a picture with my son or my family and post that. If it's someone's birthday, I'll post that. It's just important to have that personal element in there so that people know that you're more than just a realtor, you're more than just a business person, and that you do have a life outside of there, and these are your hobbies, and they can relate to you from that perspective.
Sure. So, number one Remax agent in the country. When did that all start to happen? Because that's a whole different dynamic than being what we'd term as a top producer. That's the upper echelon of elite status. So take us through that if you don't mind.
So after 2010, I started ranking quite high on the transaction levels. So I was consistently selling the most homes in my region in Ontario, and then by 2016, I started ranking number one in Canada for number of transactions for Remax. And then the last 2018, 2019, and we'll find out about 2020 tomorrow, in fact,
Oh,
to
nice.
see my rank in earned commissions, my world ranking. So I'm ranked currently at number 3 in all of in the world, number 1 in Canada. Still ranked number 1 in Canada for transactions since 2016, and so we'll see what happens. But it's a momentum. I've got a very unique system. I do not have a team, but I have a very unique system that I've implemented that's allowed me to focus very, very heavily on the listing side, and I handle each and every listing personally. I have 3 full-time assistants that are admin. They're not licensed. They handle all of the feedback, follow-up, admin, marketing, you name it, scheduling. And so my job is basically showing up. I handle every offer that comes in on my listing. So I don't have a team or team member that does any of the listing side. On the buying side, I have a buyer's rep network, and it's no different than having a referral network. Where if someone's moving to London, I'm going to call you, Ryan, and say, I've got a client who wants to buy a home in London. Please help them out. So I'm doing that on a localized level. Because of the amount of marketing, branding, boosting that I'm doing in Milton, Mississauga, Brampton, Oakville, Burlington, I'm getting a lot of people asking me, hey, we're going to be in town, we want to buy a home, can you help us? That that colder sort of contact is referred out to one of 5 or 6 buyers reps that I've identified as part of my network. And I refer my business to those people. They run their own show. They're independent agents. They have buses, billboards, you name it. They do their own marketing. They do their own branding. There is no affiliation with me other than I'm a referral source. So I'm no different than a lead generator to those people. And that's what I've been doing. So that allows me to participate in those transactions that I've generated the lead for, but I don't get involved in any of the ongoing business. And then I've got a system in place that if that buyer has a home to sell and it's within my region, then I take that listing as well. So I always handle the listing end of things, and I always refer the buyers end of things. Now, if someone's calling on one of my own listings and they're not already working with a realtor, I personally show my listings as well.
You do?
Absolutely.
I was surprised to hear that you say that, actually, but that's pretty amazing.
So at any given time, I may have 12 to 15 active listings that I'm working on, and I have believe it or not, I did 458 ends last year. I have the time to show my listings. Now there are exceptions if I'm away or if it's a weekend. I try to get away Thursday nights and I take Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the cottage. But I will make the time and I will make sure that those listings are still serviced when I'm not here. But if I am here, I'm handling that.
So what, I guess, supported your decision in going down that route than the big team? Because, you see these monster teams, which some of them now are like a brokerage within a brokerage. But what made you go down this road? Because it is rare. Like I don't hear too many people that are doing 450 ends without a team.
Yeah. So, and again, that's where, 386 of those ends were listing ends. The balance were referral ends that I get 50% credit for when I refer that business out. So it's not, none of that comes into to me as a team leader. And so the reason why I don't have a team is I don't find it sustainable for me. And then again, not to take away from any team leaders that may be listening, just for me, I've never done it, but I've watched it and I've looked at leaders in my own office that had 10, 12 people and they couldn't sustain that because it was sort of this inequity where the team members were always complaining. And who were they complaining to? They were complaining to me saying, Faisal, I've been with this team for a year and I get no leads or I get rental leads. I don't get the good stuff. The team leader takes all the good stuff or gives it to their favorite employee or whoever it is. So there was always this, and I'm like, I don't want to be in a position where I have to babysit a bunch of realtors that are looking at me to give them business. So when I run this referral network, I'm also mentoring these agents. They're newer agents. They're ambitious, they're motivated, they're hungry, they want the business. And I like to take them to a point where they can say to me, Faisal, we've had enough. We can't take any more of your leads. And that opens the door for someone else to come in who's young and energetic and young in the business, not necessarily young, but young in the business to take on the reins of that and do the running around and take and be really motivated to grow their business. So I identify the right personalities that I want to work with. And what I do is I encourage them. I'm not threatened by them branding themselves, them advertising. I have one of my buyer's reps that I refer a lot of business to has a billboard on the flip side of my billboard. So I don't look at it as competition. I look at it as compliment, where I would rather help them grow their business because while I'm referring business to them, I'm also helping them finance their branding. And when they get to that point, then I can pass it on to someone else.
Wow. When you look at that dynamic, and I've been through the ups and downs with my own teams, and I fully agree on sustainability. It's really, really challenging. What have you seen emerge? Are you seeing some that do have that high level of success and can make it all work, or is it just ongoing? Because from everything that I've seen, everybody that I've spoken to, interviewed, colleagues, whatever, they indicate that the average turnover for a team member is about 22 months.
That sounds about right.
And that's one of the greatest challenges that I ever had with really wanting to keep going on the team dynamic, because all that time, energy, money invested, and they're gone.
So to that point, my average buyer's rep that I refer business to has been with me for 8 years. So I started that in 2012, and those buyers reps are still with me, and they're doing very well. They're doing around 50 to 60 ends a year, and they're still happy to take the business because what they've identified is that there are seasons in which there's a lot of business that's going to come to them organically through their spheres, but there are seasons when they're not going to have that, and when they don't have that, they're really looking at, as an agent, I'm happy if you call me right now, Ryan, and say, Faisal, I've got a listing in Cambridge for you. I'm going to take that listing. I'm going to happily pay you the referral because I'm not going to turn away that referral source. And that's why these agents are happy to take that. But they also don't ever come to me and whine about, hey, why haven't you sent me a lead? Why haven't you sent me a referral? Because they understand that I have a very stringent policy. I have a contract that I ask them to sign. And, when I get a lead in, they have 20 minutes to respond to that.
Mhm.
A buyer's lead, they have 20 minutes. If they don't respond to that lead in 20 minutes, it goes to somebody else. So most of them have set up these awesome ringtones on their phone, so they know when my lead's coming into them, they're going to pick up because they don't want to miss out on that 20-minute opportunity.
That's awesome. When you refer though, so for example, somebody's coming in and they want to buy, and I don't work with buyers. I've got a partner that she would, or I would refer out. I think one of the greatest fears that anybody always has is that they're not controlling the whole situation and they won't let go of a buyer in order to focus on other things. Is it a challenge to refer, to somebody in that, type of network? Because it's not like you're saying this is part of my team, or how do you position that everybody's comfortable and moves forward?
So, I've identified the 5 or 6 people that I work with, and I know their personalities. I know how they work. I know what I have people that are very nurturing and very, soft spoken. Then I have people that are, very charismatic and just, gets along with everybody. So, there's different characteristics. And I think it's important that even in a team environment, you have to choose. I have some people that are a little bit older. I have some people that are a little bit younger. I have 2 males that I refer to because certain ethnicities prefer to work with males. Certain ethnicities prefer to work with females. So you've got to sort of look at. We are sort of making a judgment call when that lead comes in. So I
Mhm.
identify based on, now I may take the call, or I'll read the email that comes in, and I'll identify what the person's needs are before so I do vet the lead
Mm.
before I send it out to somebody. So I think you just have to really be mindful of the people that you're going to align yourself with, that they fit your sort of model and that they fit your culture that you've got in your industry.
Did you, I mean, the network that you have, I guess I would question, you could have an incredible real estate office or a brokerage. Did you ever consider that as an option, or is it along the lines of you just didn't want the management of people aspect?
So I made a decision many, many years ago. I like aligning myself with a brand, and that doesn't mean that one gets lazy and says, well, I'll just ride on the coattails of the brand. But I like aligning myself with the brand because I've been able to sort of, use that brand to my advantage and become my own brand. Now, I may be my own brand within my community or within the city or this region. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm a brand outside of here. So that's one of the reasons that I didn't do it. But the other decision that I made is that I'm running a real estate business independently as an agent, and I earn commissions from that. I like to leverage that in using that to invest in developments, in building, in investing in properties, doing other things with that resource, as opposed to putting all my eggs in one basket and say, okay, now I'm going to invest. Running a brokerage, as you know, Ryan, it's a different animal than
Mhm.
selling real estate. So I'm not a manager. I've identified that. I don't do well with having to worry about infrastructure of an office and compliance and trust accounts. I would rather pass that all off to someone who knows what they're doing and just focus on what I know and stay basically in my lane. But I'm leveraging my career to invest in real estate related things, not necessarily a brokerage.
Makes sense. Makes total sense. So you said that you're into development and investment properties, things like that as well. Is that a great passion of yours, or
Yes, I very early on I started investing in partnerships, and that's the other thing. Multi-level partnering is so important. A lot of agents don't do that in our industry. Um, And I get it. A lot of people are apprehensive about partnerships, but I like to, and I've always, it started with the South African group that we were talking about earlier. When they were in town buying a commercial building, they needed a local partner who was a Canadian resident. I took a 5%, and I was 19 years old. I took a 5% ownership interest. 3% of that came from my commissions. I didn't even know about property or income tax at the time, so I had to cough that up a little bit later on. But 3% of that came from my income generated from the commissions, and the other 2% came from borrowing on my line of credit at the time to invest 5% in this building. And what I learned from that on is that it's nice and it's advantageous to be even a small part of something that could potentially be very big. After that, I invested again. My commissions kept being reinvested. And I was, 18 when I started. I lived at home. I wasn't, bogged down with all the other things that come with life at the time. So I was able to continuously reinvest the money that I was earning back into investments with people that, and I would ask them, I say, hey, if you're interested, I'd love to participate in this investment property. And I've continued, I've done a lot on my own since, but to this day, recently we just purchased a plaza and I took a percentage of the ownership of that as because I'm trying to build my real estate portfolio as I'm in this industry. And it does surprise me at how many realtors don't take advantage of that opportunity, even if it's in a small part. If the opportunity exists, because at some point, we're not going to have a pension, and these properties are going to go a long way in paying for our retirement. As you know, I've written a book and I talk a lot about this and how to leverage your license and how to monetize your license, be it through property management, but other avenues that you can explore that your real estate license permits you to do so. And there's so much you can do with it that I've only recently started exploring those options even at a greater length now.
Wow. So let's talk about the book for a second. What led you to writing a book?
So I would often be called into the local high schools, and a lot of the teachers were, became clients of mine, and the environment in the schools has continuously changed. I don't know if it's for the worse or better, but we'll leave that out. And many kids are lost. I would say that I was very lucky that I sort of knew what I wanted to do and I was determined to do it and I followed my path. But not everyone is set to go to university, get an education, get a degree, and then get a job and work for someone. There are many people that are just looking for something else, and they have the sort of the mindset to do something, and they need some sort of mentorship or coaching. So many years ago, I started doing that with the high school that I actually went to, and I would do speaking engagements there, and one-on-one, and bringing co-op students in, and just trying to, and usually it would be kids that were really lost and needed some guidance, and it was one of the things that I actually enjoyed doing. But one of my teachers at the time said, you should really write about your journey, and more to inspire young people, even just to tell them, look, you came through, and I came through a very difficult childhood. A lot of, unfortunate things happened. My father lost his right arm in an industrial accident 3 years after we moved to this country. So my mom worked in a factory just to make ends meet for us. So, there were a lot of, hardships that we faced. And to be able to sort of come out of that and pass through the things that I went through, and sharing that journey, I thought would be a good inspiration to some people, young people. Part two of that was I wanted my, I don't sit down with my kids and tell them the whole story and that type of thing. And I thought, it'd be kind of a nice thing to do, leave a legacy for my children to read about, hey, Dad's journey, how he got to where he is and what he did. And then often I would get realtors calling me, asking me to, sit down with them, talk to them, share my strategies. So I decided that, I'm going to write a complete book. Absolutely everything I do, what we're talking about today, is all in there. All of my strategies, nothing held back. In fact, my editor said, hey, you're saying too much here. You're giving away all the secrets. And I said, no, you know what? I probably won't write another book. So I like to put it all in there once and for all. And so it's got business strategies, it's got investment strategies. I talk about a lot about financial literacy for youths. I also talk a lot about investing for your future and retirement. And it's not only for investors, but it's also a good guide for realtors. And look, it's just my experiences. I'm not by any means suggesting I've done it the right way. I've done the things that worked for me, and
Mhm.
I felt there would be some benefit in sharing that if others are in the same position to take advantage of those strategies.
That's amazing. And can you refresh everybody for the name of the book, where they can find it?
Sure, I shameless plug here. Let me get it here. So that's the book there. It's called The Real Deal: Journey of a Billion-Dollar Real Estate Broker. It's on Amazon, Audible, Kindle, and there is a hard copy as well. So Amazon.ca, if you type in my name or The Real Deal, Donald Trump's book might come up as well. So don't get that one.
Did you do the Audible yourself on it?
I was about to. And Ryan, we were in a focus group once a month. I was taking a lot of time at the cottage, so that's COVID helped me write the book because yeah, starting April, I really hunkered down and started writing this book and got it published by September.
Wow.
I was about to go into the studio in May, and then of course the real estate market just exploded, and before you knew it, I had no time. So I got a gentleman out of California who did the voice for me. And it's if you didn't know me, you'd probably think it was me speaking.
Nice, nice. It's quite a process. I did Audible for my book, and it was in the studio. But there's a dynamic when you edit a book. I don't know if you went through this yourself, but for me, it was reading the book out loud
Yes.
is a part of the process that I worked with the book coach when I did mine, and you catch errors. But when you go in and read your own book in a studio, it's a challenging experience because you cough or like you lose your tone, they stop you. It's a process for sure.
Yeah, and it's 356 pages, so
Yeah.
I just don't know if I've got the ability to do that. One day I would love to do that. I'd love to put it in my own words, but the gentleman that read it for me, he did a fantastic job. I'm quite pleased with it.
What do you do for your own motivation, inspiration? I mean, you're a pretty inspiring fellow. Obviously, anybody here that's heard this or reads your book, it is, looking to model excellency, like you said at the beginning of this. But what do you seek out for motivation, inspiration, and what keeps you going?
I find inspiration in many different ways. I'm inspired by my kids. I look at my kids, I look at what they're doing, what they want to get out of life, and that desire to be more, to do more. So that from that level up, and then I look at people that are have come out of much more hardships than I've ever even dreamt of, um, making such great lives of themselves. People that have come through wars or come through, droughts and things like that. And so for me, it's about just building a future that I can look back on and be proud of, but not taking away from family. And I was very fortunate that I started in this business at a young age, and many of the senior agents that I was working with at that time would always say, hey, the kids grow up too fast. Spend time with your kids and take the time to really listen to them. And our families, our parents were first generation. We didn't really get that opportunity to get very close with them because they were trying to put food on the table.
Hmm.
So for me, you know having that time with my kids. My son is 19, my daughter is 15, but having had, the ability to take Thursday nights off right through to Sunday and spend time with them and watch them grow and have those conversations. Those are things that, in itself, it's inspiration. It motivates you to do better, to do
Mhm.
more, and to do it in a way that is also showing them an example of what hard work can give you, and what being honest will give you in life. So those are the things that really I use to get inspired. I find inspiration from a lot of agents that are in the industry, and it's not necessarily successful agents. I admire a lot of the younger agents that are trying to get there, and I learn a lot. Like, this is the thing. It's just when I listen to even my buyers reps, and the experiences that they're having today out in the field. I never had to deal with that. I never have to deal with multiple offers and losing 31 offers before you
Yeah,
win
it's
one.
crazy.
Those things didn't happen. So there's a whole level of respect that I have for agents that are doing that, and I feel very grateful that I'm on the listing side, delivering great news to sellers. But don't get me wrong, there were many years there in the early 90s and 2000 and 2007 where you were not delivering good news to sellers. You were talking about how they're going to lose their home, how they're going to have a foreclosure. And I get beat up a lot on social media right now when I post, I sold a house for $300,000 over asking. But I don't get bothered by it at all, because those people who bought those homes sacrificed their vacations, their brand new cars, their luxuries of life, deserve those returns on their investment and their sacrifices. People have a choice. Those who didn't make those right choices back then and are begrudging those who are making money on their real estate investments today. That's on them. It's not. I don't think one should begrudge the people that are making good returns on their money right now, because there were many years where they didn't make anything on their money.
Totally. Just on a technical side of things, and this is just my own interest. We know that there's, a rule and regulation about posting, how much over asking or things like that. Obviously, people would observe yours. How do you set that up? Do you get the written permission from buyer and seller
Yeah,
for that? Okay.
yeah. It's a schedule that's printed in my offer. So any offer that comes to on my listing has a Schedule B attached. Now, there might be, I can't even think, there might be one or two out of 458 transactions that I did where someone specifically said, I do not want it published.
Right.
I would respect that.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah.
No, I always see it on yours because I follow your Instagram. It always just blows me away as far as sold and how much over and that. But I wondered because our board here in London is really scrutinizing a lot of agents that are posting it, but they don't have the permission, and they're just trying to keep people out of trouble, of course. So
Yeah, no, and again, I respect that, but yeah, we do have a schedule, and there's a part two to that. I've always, when I list a property, and this is one of the things that I think is very important as a listing agent, I never want to annoy the buyer. I want that call to come in, and I don't want that call to be, how much are you asking? Because I'm not looking for a cold lead anymore. I want a qualified person calling me. I always publish the asking price on a property when I'm listing a property.
mm,
And when I'm providing the sold, I'm also it's marketing, no question about it. But B, it's also information. Sold information is not readily available to buyers and sellers. So I think it's important, especially when you have 4,000 or 5,000 followers, why not be the source of information? Why not give them? Why not be the first to let them know? And in turn, you might be the one that they think of when they're thinking about buying or selling real estate. Why not be the one? Why not be the source of the information they go to for all things relate to real estate? When government rules change, when banking changes, when there's incentives, when there's tax breaks, be the first to be out there and put it out there so that you become their go-to in all things related to real estate.
mhm. When you talk about, your brand affiliation, and I think that you're pretty open because we've talked before, and it's not a I'm Remax and a look at me sort of thing. When you see people that are, I often see people that jump around all the time. And I've never thought that that's going to be healthy for your business when your sphere sees you constantly, moving around looking for the next, solution, which really it's not the brand. But right now, obviously, with companies like EXP or some of the the big cloud-based organizations, there's a lot of disruption with it. Do you have a take on it? Not necessarily why one's better than the other, but more so in terms of what an affiliation or what to look for from a company or organization for anybody, like just a general kind of sense of what people should look for.
Right. And I'm not a fan of jumping around. You have to think about, am I jumping around because I want that 6 months free desk fee, or I want some sort, and if that's your motivation, you know what? You've just basically started an exit plan. You're getting out of the business.
Yeah.
Because if you're jumping around because someone's offering you a little bit of an incentive to come there. And not to pick on EXP, and I don't know too much about EXP. I think there's great value to join EXP if you've got a team of 40 agents and there's another source of income that you're going to get. I don't know the whole structure. I know they have a share structure. I know they have an incentive, but to me, it's more of a sort of a pyramid or an Amway type of thing, multi-level marketing, which it might be. And forgive me if I'm misspeaking here, but I just don't know enough about it, nor do I really care to learn at this point. But I think there's value to someone to go into that if they've got an established business model and they're going to generate income passively as a result of that. When you're looking at joining an organization, you have to look at the leader. If whether it's a team or a brokerage, you have to look at the leader. You have to look at the resources that they offer, the training that they offer. Have they evolved as a brokerage? Why are the cloud type based real estate firms doing so well? Because they've evolved into a technology based platform that resonates with young people. Millennials love that because they can sort of do everything cloud based, and is right, iCloud, I this iPhone, whatever it is. So it's resonating, and they brilliant. That whole concept is brilliant. But don't forget what we do. We sell real estate. Forget all the noise. Forget all of that. We sell real estate. So what is going to enable you to sell real estate the best? What is going to give you the tools that you need to sell real estate the best? And that's where I've always insisted that we have the latest technology. I've got a great, and I talk a lot about social media, but I've got a great social media following and a great social media platform and online presence because I refused to remain stagnant. I refuse to just stay status quo. I'll just keep doing my weekly ads in the newspaper. And those are my colleagues that I started with 32 years ago in this business that didn't evolve, that didn't choose to embrace the change, are no longer in business, or they've just basically, fizzled out. So that's important. You also have to look at the power that your brokerage has, or the ability to help you get past the finish line. And what I mean by that is, disrupting the disruptors. You have this whole iBuyer platform right now, where you get the iBuyers and wholesalers, and we'll buy your home for cash. Now, just imagine this: you're a young person in this business, you don't have the resources. I have my own iBuyer program that I offer anybody that wants it. It's available to them. I'm fortunate that I have the resources to do it. But let's say you're a newer agent, you don't have the resources. Your brokerage, just imagine if your brokerage offered that and said, okay, if there's ever an opportunity that you're about to lose the listing because they are willing to wholesale this to an iBuyer, come to us and we'll fund it. We'll fund your iBuyer, or we'll guarantee the sale, and we'll make sure that they get a minimum payout on that. When you offer and when you can disrupt the disruptors, that's when you're going to succeed. And in order to do that, you have to have some sort of foundation or backing, whether it be your broker, a group of investors, or someone. And this is something that our industry is it's being attacked with right now. You get those fancy handwritten email, mail in your
Yeah.
mailbox, the post signs, and people offering the world to get you to sell without going on the market. Well, what can you do to disrupt that? And the way to disrupt that is not resist it, but to embrace it and to offer it as a part of the menu of services that you have.
So good. And there's so much of that in our market right now. And it's and I know that they're disrupting a number of agents, because I hear about, even our agents all the time that are having challenges with it. So this gives me a great idea. I thank you for that.
So Ryan, I'll tell you, most of the time I hear agents call, and they call me arguing and upset and angry and telling me about the agent that did this and what they want to do to them, and just awful things.
Sure.
And I've got a very simple solution. When I sit at someone's table and they say that the wholesaler or the iBuyer offered them X amount of dollars, I have a checkbook in my briefcase that I bring out and I say, whatever the offer is, I will increase it by $10,000 and I'll write you a check. But I don't feel it's in your best interest to take my check right now. Let me list your home. Let me get you the price point that I feel your home is worth and exceed your expectations. For 1 or 2 weeks to be on the market, why would you leave that kind of money on the table? And if you don't get it, here's my check. I'll write you a check for $10,000 more. And I don't even want to know what the other price was. I can tell you right now, I can give you $10,000 more and I'm still getting a deal on your home. And that's powerful when you can do that.
Huge. It's huge. That's amazing. I hope everybody's paying attention to that right now, because that is one of your greatest forms of competition strategy that I think I've heard in a long time.